Hello again, football fans, and welcome to the RFL Draft Preview Chicago Cougars edition. So I will be dropping team preview videos throughout the week in anticipation of Friday night's round one of the season 10 RFL draft. So there will be a lot to talk about as we get closer and closer to Friday night. But without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and give you the Chicago Cougars draft preview here. So quick look at what the Cougars are looking at in terms of their overall draft capital, right? So a lot of picks in the Chicago War Room, right? So they've got 10 picks in the draft. They've got 3 picks in the first round, 3 picks in the second round, 2 picks in round 3, and then a solo pick in round 6 and also in round 7. So what are they going to do with those picks, right? 10 picks is a lot. The reality of the situation here for the Cougars, only 6, I guess you could say 8 of those picks really count. The 6th round pick and the 7th round pick, probably not going to amount to anything. And depending on what they're going to do and how the roster is going to be constructed, that 6th and 7th round pick might even end up being guys that ultimately end up on the practice squad or don't even make the roster. So for the most part, we're going to look at the first round and the second round with the Cougars, right? Because they do have 3 picks in both of those rounds. So that is a lot of draft capital. That is a lot of early round draft capital. When you have early round draft capital, you want it to count. You want to go out there and you want to get guys that are going to impact your team immediately. You saw it last year with the selection of Austin Sanders, won Defensive Rookie of the Year. And so that is what the Cougars are expecting and hoping for with their draft this season. Obviously, when you have 3 picks, as you can see right there at the bottom of your screen, inside the top 10, that is unheard of. This is going to be completely uncharted waters here for the RFL and for the Chicago Cougars. So what are they going to do? Right? If you look at the Cougars roster, right, there are some strengths, despite the fact that they legitimately earned the first overall pick because they were the worst team in the league, worst record, whatever you want. They earned that first overall pick. So obviously there are some holes, there are some weaknesses, there are some things that Coach Roby is going to want to work on. But let's also not forget that they do have some strengths on this team. The wide receiving core, they have some playmakers. And even the offensive line, they have some guys on the offensive line. They've also still got some guys on defense. I know they've gotten rid of quite a few recently, but they do still have some playmakers. The biggest need, which it's no surprise, we've been talking about it for a long time now, is going to be that franchise cornerstone. When you look at the Cougars, they lack a quarterback. They have tried myriad of different guys over the last year and a half with minimal success. And so with the first overall pick, could they take a quarterback? Possibly. However, when you have 3 picks in the first 10 picks, you might not necessarily need to take the quarterback 1 overall. So quarterback will certainly be an area that they have got to get somebody. And if you look at the consensus, is that going to be a Dylan Lewis from Ohio State? Is that going to be a Jaden Young from Alabama? I don't imagine a curveball scenario where that is Colorado Rivers. I think there's clearly a gap between Dylan Lewis, Jaden Young, and then Colorado Rivers. But crazier things have happened. And then you got to look at, okay, well, where else might the Cougars go, right? And so you got to look defensive line. And so if I'm the Cougars, I'm looking at the defensive tackle position. Clearly, Wyatt Harris is the consensus number 1 defensive tackle, probably the consensus number 1 defensive lineman, depending on who you're talking to. And so with the 1-1, it's very conceivable that the Cougars would go defensive tackle and then with the 1-7 turn around and try to get that quarterback. Now, would that be the first quarterback off the board? We don't know. Perhaps they would be taking the second quarterback off the board. But there's a scenario where the Cougars go defensive tackle at 1, quarterback at 7, and then you get to the point where, okay, the offensive line has some talent, right? They've got a few guys that are above 80 overall, low 80s, but they're aging, right? And so could they take a luxury pick and go and get a young stud offensive lineman, right? Like, would that be tackle? Would that be guard, interior, exterior? Where do you want to go on the offensive line? If you're picking 9th overall, if you look at the current depth chart for the Cougars, you might think, well, they should probably go tackle. If they're going to address the offensive line, they should probably go tackle. However, a lot of people out there say that there's a pretty significant interior offensive line market right now. You look at a guy like Casey Chestnut, you look at a guy like Cesar Davis. Those guys are, to most people, interior offensive linemen. And if you can get a guy like that, while he may not get every down reps this year, if you're going to start him as a guard or a center, you have your cornerstone for years to come. And again, when you're the Cougars and you have all these draft picks, you have the luxury of taking guys that don't need to start right away. Yes, I understand that when you're bottom of the barrel in terms of league standings, you want guys that are going to start right away. Yes, I completely get that. However, you also have the ability with the first pick in the second round, the 5th pick in the second round, and the 27th pick in the second round to get other guys as well. So if I'm Coach Roby and I have the opportunity to get a guy like Casey Chestnut with the 9th pick in the first round, and I really want to solidify my offensive line, great, I could do that. They could go offensive tackle if they wanted to get a guy that could play right away. I just think that there is a little bit of a gap from a guy like a Casey Chestnut to whoever the top offensive tackles might be, right? Like if you're looking at like Pecan's rankings and you're looking at the offensive tackle position, you've got guys like Greg Dunham, you've got guys like Anthony Moore, you've got Cody Nelson. There's also guys like Sonny Daniels at Penn State. And there's a few other guys there that I'm missing, but there's a little bit more there in terms of the offensive tackle. So maybe you don't go the offensive tackle 9th overall because you know that you might be able to get a guy in the second round. And whoever you get in the second round is potentially a guy that could start for you. And then at that point, you really just, if you're the Cougars, you have the luxury of taking BPA. You can take the best player that's available. You can look at your current roster, right? And if I'm the Cougars and I want to look at the overall roster and kind of look towards the future, maybe these second round picks, maybe these aren't guys that are going to play right away. But when you look at guys that are going to be free agents at the end of the year, there are conversations that are going to have to be made. Chidoi Bolijak is a free agent at the end of this year. Now, are they going to re-sign him or are they going to let him go? If they're going to re-sign him, well, then you're probably not looking towards a receiver. But if you're going to let him go, well, then maybe with the gluttony of draft picks that they have here, maybe they address a receiver at some point in the draft if they're looking to the future and if Chidoi Bolijak is not going to be part of that. But then you've also got a bunch of guys on the offensive line that are, like I said, either aging 30, 31, 32 years old, or they are potential free agents at the end of the year. You look at a guy like Ray Parra, Hugh Jacobs. You've also got Tyler Thorne, Perry Borum, Ron Sidney. These are all guys that are free agents at the end of this year. Now, some of those guys are going to be brought back, but some of those guys are not going to be brought back because they're potentially going to get replaced by younger guys with these draft picks. So if you're looking at what the Chicago Cougars are going to do, I would be shocked if they didn't go Wyatt Harris at 1 overall. I would be shocked if they didn't take a quarterback either at 7 or at 9. It really just depends on what happens 2 through 6. And if there is a quarterback taken, well, then I certainly would see the Cougars taking the quarterback at 7. If there's not a quarterback that has been taken and there's been no quarterbacks taken and the Cougars are on the clock at 1-7, well, then maybe they don't go quarterback at 1-7 and they take another position, right? If they think that there's another guy out there that they really like there's some guys out there. Again, you don't have to go based solely on need when you're picking 3 times in the top 10. Could they get a guy like a Jack Sky? Could they get a guy like a Xavier Savage with that 7th pick? And if no quarterback has been taken 1 through 7, well, then wait and see who goes at 8. And then again, you're picking at 9 and you could take your quarterback at 9. So I would be shocked if Wyatt Harris doesn't go first overall. I would be shocked if a quarterback doesn't go to the Cougars with one of those first 3 picks in the top 10. And then I would be shocked if at some point in the draft, they don't do something to address the offensive line. Again, they've got several guys that are either getting up there in age or free agents at the end of the year, but they've got 6 picks in the first 2 rounds. So that's where I kind of see the Cougars going. Again, we still have a week. Trades can happen between now and then. And you just never know what other guys are thinking. But I think if you were to take some time and look at the Cougars roster, you would see that those are kind of the areas that they might address. And so don't be surprised if that's what they end up doing. So Chicago Cougars are on the clock, and it remains to be seen who they will take. My guess is going to be Wyatt Harris, the defensive tackle from Ohio State. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Who do you think the Cougars are going to take with those first 3 first-round picks? And then what do you think they're going to do based on your thoughts? What do you think they're going to do with those picks in the second round? All right, so that is the Chicago Cougars draft preview. Again, the RFL draft round 1 will start on Friday night on the RFL YouTube channel. But between now and the rest of the week, between now and the draft, I will be dropping individual team previews on my Miners Live channel. So be sure to check those out. If you have not already subscribed, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification so that you can get updates when new team previews are released. Until then, I will talk to you guys later. And this has been your Chicago Cougars draft preview. Take care, everybody.